Residents are fleeing far-left cities like New York and San Francisco in record numbers. As someone who did the same myself, I'm going to tell you why it's really happening. People want out of big cities, especially far-left big cities. And cities like San Francisco and New York are seeing the brunt of this. Now, here's a story from the Sacramento Bee. Nearly half of Bay Area residents want out, polls show. The reason why is no surprise. Now, they're talking about home prices as being the primary reason why. There are a lot of other factors here. So let's read this. A poll released Sunday by a local advocacy group showed that 46% of Bay Area residents surveyed said they want to move out of the area within the next few years. That number is up from 34% in 2016 and 40% last year in the same polls. Very interesting. So each year since 2016, there's been a 6% increase in the number of people that want to leave the San Francisco Bay Area. Now it's at 46%. Next year, if the trend holds, it'll be at 52%. So over half of people will want to leave. Now, the survey was a joint effort by the advocacy group, the Bay Area Council, and a public opinion data firm, EMC Research. So the poll involved 1,000 registered voters in the Bay Area. So a good sample. Now, most people is saying that it's just too expensive. 45% of the respondents blame the cost of living. 27% of respondents blamed housing prices. And those were the main reasons cited among the 461 of the 1,000 respondents who said they want out. New York is suffering from many of the same numbers. I'll tell you about those in just a moment. 42% of the survey respondents called housing costs, availability of housing, the most important problems. Traffic was 18%. Poverty, homelessness was 14%. Now, a UC Berkeley poll last year showed 56% of voters have considered moving due to the cost of housing. Now, here's the interesting part. Of the 461 people that said they wanted to leave, 24% of those, so about 100 of them, said they would stay in California. So 361 of the 461 people that said they want to move out of the Bay Area also presumably want to leave California. Oppressive tax rates, soaring illegal immigration, no middle class anymore. And that's really the biggest problem, right? If you want to live in a decent neighborhood, you have to be wealthy. Otherwise, you have to live in a very bad neighborhood or in a very rural area. And in California, traffic being the number 2 problem, it takes you 2 hours, 2.5 hours each way to get to work. Now, Sacramento, interestingly, 5% of the 461, so that comes out to 32 people, said they would move to Sacramento. Not a really significant data point, except for the fact that this is the Sacramento Bee, and they needed to do something Sacramento-centric with the story. Bay Area median home prices hit $850,000 in April, according to the Mercury News. Most Americans don't just have $850,000 to go down on a house, but it's other things. You see this dovetail with stories about Californians now potentially being told by their state legislature when they can shower, run the sink, flush the toilet, when they can use water. I had a prominent television personality, old friend of mine, tell me, I pay a 60% tax rate. Lives in LA. I don't have water. I believe lives in the Calabasas area. I can't just go outside if my car's a little dusty. I can't go outside, turn on my hose and spray my car down for fear that I'm going to get some kind of environmental summons. Or worse, in California, they'll arrest you for things like that. So it's no wonder people want to leave. New York facing the same here from the New York Post. Tons of New Yorkers want to leave the city. These are very recent stories just in the last couple of days. 1/3 from this New York Post story, 1/3 of New Yorkers want to ditch the Big Apple. A study by brokerage and real estate listings hub Redfin, found that 34% of its New York City users searched for properties outside the city. This is by a Bloomberg report. It's worse. Of that 34%, the majority looked at homes in Boston. They like being in a city. They might even be Democratic voters. They don't just want to leave New York City. They want to leave New York State, much like the majority of respondents, 76% of those who want to leave the Bay Area. Of those who want to leave the Bay Area in California, 76% of those want to leave California. So they're saying in this story, it's a nationwide phenomenon of the other cities that the majority of New Yorkers who want to leave. So they looked at Boston the most. They also looked at Miami and Atlanta. Now, I'm one of those. I'm a guy that left New York City in 2004 for Miami. There were a lot of reasons I left. Cost of living. Yep. Traffic. Yep. But it was oppressive. There are a lot of other things that tie in with the cost of living and the traffic. It's the oppressive nature of a democratic run big city. Very difficult to do business in a city or state like that. Opportunity is very difficult to create because of the burdensome regulation. The amount of money you have to spend just to make sure your business is compliant. New York City has draconian anti-business policies. There are ordinances in New York City where if you own a very small business, a corner store, convenience store, which is really cost prohibitive to run these days in New York City, the rent is exorbitant. So it's very tough for those mom and pops to stay alive. But if they happen to, they're a legacy business with strong community ties and decades-long customer base. There are ordinances in New York City, mostly put into place under the Bloomberg administration, very oppressive, very statist, where if you have one letter too many on your awning, the fine started around $25,000. How does a small business survive facing a $25,000 fine for too many letters on their awning? Parking tickets in some areas of New York City are up to $350, $400. You can't really drive anywhere in the city anymore. You're forced to use public transportation, but the MTA, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, doesn't maintain the subways and buses. They're old and they're dirty. They're inefficient, horribly inefficient compared to other places in the world. Now, look, I understand New York is a huge city. I grew up there, know all about it. But very little of the exorbitant tax base, of the oppressive tax base, seems to trickle down to the people who need it, the working people that use public transportation or need to get around the city. It always seems to find its way into entitlement programs. And that's another reason people are leaving. Now, the way these questions are posed, they couldn't really say that. Redfin is looking at it simply from web searches. And the survey in the Bay Area in California asked people about, they gave them a list of issues that were important to them, but they didn't basically say, tell us why you're leaving. And many of these people are Democrats, and they wouldn't admit it anyway. But deep inside, they know that they'll never blame it on Democrats. They'll find a way to blame it on Trump, and the Democrats in their city are doing the best they can to counter Trump's policies. So it's making things more difficult. And if Trump would only stop doing what he's doing and stop being so mean, then those Democrats wouldn't have to be oppressive to their people. And yada, you know how that whole story goes. The reality is, Democrats only know one way: regulation, tax, spend. I love bringing you these shows every day, so help me keep doing that by subscribing to our premium service at www.therebel.media/shows. Go to the App Store, download the Rebel app, and stick with us here at the Rebel for the latest on Tommy Robinson's situation in the UK jail for 13 months for reporting on Muslim rape gangs, something the UK wanted to keep quiet. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.